Hey, what's up everyone? This is Brian Judy, or you can call me Light. And for today's tip, I wanted to show you how I go about shading, both digitally and traditionally. It's the same technique I use. Usually I start with the rough outline and get the mapped out planes of the face in order. So you can see I have some dimension already going on in the nose area here, and a little bit of line work just to show the direction of the lips. And the eyes, eyebrows, some hair. Now, I think some people struggle with shading because they feel a little daunted about all these different little gradients of shading. And so my approach is to try to find two tones, lights and darks. So I'll start with just mapping out shadow and then fill all of that in and then go darker and go darker and darker. So let me demonstrate and it'll make more sense as we go. So first I'm just going to analyze the face, and I kind of see in this area here is where a lot of the lights are living. There's probably some lights that would be worth keeping here. But even all of this, even though it looks light in comparison to this, I'm going to group it all together as darks. So let's start by doing that. So first I'm mapping it out, map out the planes of those shadows. And once I've established where my boundaries are, then I go in and I'm going to shade everything. Everything that's inside of that. Yes, there are some lighter and dark tones, but everything's just going to get one color. Now again, this is going to work both in traditional media, just a paper and pen, and it's going to work for digital too, iPad or Photoshop. Now that I've established that, I'm going to go ahead and blend it a little bit. So traditionally you could use your finger or paper stubs and things like that, or even a cloth. And this is going to smooth out my shading and also lighten it up a little bit. So now I've established sort of an interesting design between light and shadows. Now obviously there's more complicated shadows going on in her, but this is what we're going to work with. Now this technique is going to really be helpful if you're wanting to get those like secondary lighting like underneath her nose here and stuff. Rather than drawing around that light, I included that light under her nose as a shadow right now. So now that I've established that, I'm going to go and look for not as dark as her nostrils, but I'm going to go for, like, let's say one shade down, so things that are a little bit more. I'm going to blend this a little bit up like that first. So let's go a little darker, like maybe around the nose. Like there's a lot of like the blood and depth is going on here around the nose, like where it's a little bit translucent, so it gets a little darker. But again, let's not just shade, let's map first. So I'm going to map the shading area again. And let's fill that in. Great, now let's blend that layer again. This just softens it up again. Works with the shading that you already did on the first layer of shading. So this area is pretty dark already, but here's where the magic happens. For this example, I'm just going to do 3 layers, but feel free to really break this down into many layers of shading and getting deeper and darker. You can really analyze the photo and probably pull out 3 midtones at least, and then have some core shadows. That would be your dark shadows. And some cast shadows would be pretty dark. And then afterwards, you can go back and add highlights. So for this, I just want to show you how now if I add the nostrils of the nose, really dark, and then a cast shadow underneath the nose that you see here. So if I map out a little bit of even that, like that part of the nose here, and then around here is going to be a little bit of cast shadow. So you have a lot of depth here, but now you get this really cool effect where you see, now, and I'm gonna really accentuate it by doing this more shadow here too. So you really get this unique effect of like, it feels like there's light underneath her nose, like the light is shining up, but it still lives in shadow. It's just that this shadow above and below that area is darker, so it gives the illusion like that there's your secondary light. So rather than just trying to always draw your highlights to add those little lighting interests on the nose, or just completely going around them, try putting them in your shadows first, and then on your darkest shadows, that's how you're going to bring them back out. You can get something really interesting. I can keep blending that and going over it again as much as you want. It depends on how realistic you want this. Now, when you're ready for some highlights, you can go back the other way and just add little marks like that, little erase little things that you'd like, that would tell something interesting, like wherever you would want to highlight or erase. And again, this is going to work fine. It's going to work wonderful on traditional media, as long as you're being pretty soft with your pencils. So don't get really in there and like burnish your pen right into the paper. Really like layer this up. And that's it. I hope that this helps you achieve some really cool looks of depth, like in your shading, and have some fun. Good luck.